if you're somebody that's actually considering the alternative lifestyle, better known as tiny house living, you first need to know the truth. So before we decided that we wanted to make this change, we went down the road that a lot of people do. We did a lot of research, yeah? And we just knew that we wanted something different out of life. So we went to YouTube University. And we went down the whole road, guys, with nomad living, Alaska cabin living, people living in campers and homesteads and compounds. They're all types of alternatives, right? People living in cars, things like that. And we get it, right? We went down that same road. And what we noticed was most of the time, almost all the time, you hear how wonderful it is. And it is. A lot of it is. But the flip side to that is what we wished we knew before we actually made some of the choices that we made. So when we decided that this lifestyle was going to be for us, we had stumbled on tiny house living. And it was something that we actually considered. Right? It also nomad. We also considered that. But the tiny house living, we just knew it was something that we could do because we lived in a tiny house in the city. This place was 697 square feet.
And there was 3 of us.
3 adults. Now, what was that like?
Well, it was a really small space. And with 3 grown adults in such a little living quarters,
it posed a lot of challenges.
It did.
Mostly
elbow room.
No room. Yeah, so we just knew that the actual tiny house lifestyle was not going to fit us very well. But we get it. In today's economy, everything is so expensive. Houses are definitely out of range for most people. And what they're thinking totally makes sense. I can just move into a camper. I can move into my car. I can buy a shed. There's all different types of alternatives that people are considering these days. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I get it. I get it. And when you go to YouTube to decide whether you can do that, you're going to likely be told all the wonderful things about it. However, we had an opportunity, and we're actually related to this person, to talk to somebody who had to live that way as a child. And they swore they would never, ever go back to it. So we knew that the people that were living that way were trying to get out of it. So we were just surprised that people nowadays are actually trying to move back into that lifestyle. And we have another example. There was this YouTube couple that moved from like Oregon or Washington to Kentucky. And they were an awesome channel. That guy was so funny. It was a wife and a husband and like 8 kids.
We admired them so much. And they were like the real couple that showed the struggle, the real struggle of what it was like living like that. Right. And it gave us a lot more to think about when they shared that with us.
Exactly. Like, how soon can we do this? One thing was for certain, our son was old enough to make a decision. Right. He could make a decision whether he could do this. And he decided to do it. Now, later down the road, other decisions were made. That's a whole different topic. But this one here is what's so key. Because what's being sold today that is a tiny house mostly is not a tiny house at all. As a matter of fact, a tiny house is a legitimate dwelling, and there's actually a definition for it. And these things have some kind of engineering involved in the process, and there's also codes that have to be followed. There's like codes to be considered a dwelling. So if you're somebody that is considering a legitimate tiny house, you're probably going to be surprised with how expensive that lifestyle actually is in a lot of places, because they throw curveballs at you all different ways when it comes to a legitimate dwelling. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what's being passed on or portrayed as some sort of a tiny house. Mm-hmm. And they're not. They're simply not tiny houses. They are a tiny house is a dwelling. Legal term is a dwelling. It classifies as a dwelling and it's legitimate. But sheds are being passed off as tiny houses. They're not. They're sheds. You're converting a shed into what would be considered some sort of a living space, but it's not a house, right? A house has to have a permanent bathroom, has to have a permanent kitchen. There's requirements, and these don't come with it, and neither do the building standards. People are trying to pass off campers as tiny houses. They're simply not. They're not tiny houses. They are something completely different, right? They come with a little bit more amenities, sometimes like ours did, right?
So when we were trying to make a choice on whether to live in a tiny house, some of these things played into our factor because these things were important for us.
Yeah. And it's not just campers, it's also sheds, dilapidated cabins are being passed off. These are all styles, broke down vehicles, buses, old dilapidated campers that are being fixed up into whatever it is that people are deciding to live in. And once again, I get it, like the lure of low cost is very powerful, especially in a market today.
But there's a much larger cost that we're trying to share with you.
Exactly. And that cost is our own experience. We're going to share with you the cost, right? Because our first summer here, we had to live in campers, right? That was our first move. We knew we were going to build something bigger anyways. But we had to live in a camper. And that is what's being passed off as tiny house living today. However, we found very, very quickly that the summer was horrific.
Our biggest challenges came from weather.
Yeah, so storms were a big thing, like massive storms. If you ever want to know exactly what a storm is all about, crawl up in your camper or wait until the big one comes and go get into your vehicle. It is simply not the same as being in a home. I'm just going to say, we spent many a nights scared, so insanely scared of the storms that were passing through. Some of them were so bad we decided to get the heck out of the camper because we've seen too many trailer parks on TV that got destroyed by tornadoes and lightning. Literally, some months back, maybe it was a year, our 30-foot camper was struck by a massive bolt of lightning that did all kinds of damage. So when we moved into that, we weren't really thinking about that because we camped. We loved camping. Yeah. We were ready to rough it, man. We knew what it meant to do that, right? But what we didn't know,
on a long-term basis.
Ooh, and that heat. Let me tell you something about living in a camper when it's hot.
That first summer was brutal. I am going to make a confession right now, y'all. It brought me to tears.
Yes.
Because it was unbearably hot.
It was. And we were like, it was so hot we were scared. Right? It was like 1,000 degrees in that thing. Yeah. It got so bad. We had, what did we have? We had a portable air conditioner that was, they're decent, right? And if you're sitting right directly in front of it,
it works.
It works.
But in a camper,
the bad thing about it is, and this goes across most of the lines. If you're in a shed, if you're considering a shed or anything like that, this is going to kind of cross over. Even a tiny house, as awesome as the real tiny houses can be, this is going to cross over. There's no room, right? And even in your own home, if it's super hot outside, you can go touch the wall and know which side the sun is on. That's how hot it gets. Well, when you're living inside of a camper that is wide enough that you can legally pull it down the road, the heat is right up against you all directions.
Yeah.
It's both sides and it's the top. It's like being in an oven. And that crosses over into sheds too. So one of the nice things about being in a real house is you can move into the inside of the home, the interior of the home, and get away from that where more of the air is probably more climate controlled, which you don't get that in these, like the sheds that are being converted, the campers, vehicles. Guys, you know what it's like, even with your air conditioning going. It is hot and brutal. And we didn't know that it was going to be that bad. It actually got so scary, Denny said she cried. And at that time, my tears were just evaporating because I seen the pain and the fear in my wife's eyes. And I just knew that thankfully we didn't have to subject any little ones to this or any of that, because that crap is bad news. All the rest of the days were great. Yeah, it's great. That part that's like camping, that was great. But the part that wasn't great was the part that we thought we weren't going to survive. Right? And then the winters.
Oh boy, the winters.
Man.
It didn't end in the summer.
It didn't end in the summer. So now we've talked about the storms. It's very, very, very important to feel safe. I really think that to feel safe inside is a game changer for most people. And when you're subjected to that, you don't feel safe, right? And the cold is no different, right? You can warm up, but here's the truth. It's just like summertime. The walls, the ceiling, and the floor radiate cold because the areas are so small and limited insulation, limited like long-term living conditions. You pay the price. So what did we do? This is what it looks like for real. You're in your winter clothes.
All the time.
All the time. When you go to the bathroom, you're froze. When you shower, you're froze.
If you even get a shower.
If you even get a shower, because they freeze up all the time. But the truth is, you're bundled up. Now, when I was growing up, I don't have memories like that. I mean, I remember being cold when it was cold. But I also remember waking up Christmas morning in my pajamas, go have a hot breakfast or whatever, open up the trees. It was
Presents.
It was like wonderful memories, right? But the ones I have out here when we had to live in our campers, that is not the same. It is not awesome when you and your significant other or your son, like us, we had our son out here. Guys, we had to live over top of an electric heater, because it can only radiate so much. And they got these ones that are pretty decent, or Mr. Cools and heaters, stuff like that. But it's still the same thing. You can't make up for the lack of what would be considered a dwelling style construction. These are not built the same. They're simply not. And all winter, we went to bed in our fuzzy breeches. They're double layered breeches with like fleece lining on the inside, long underwears.
Lots of layers.
Lots of socks. Guys, you're wearing all your winter socks to bed. We would wear our shirts, sweatshirts, a hoodie, and a jacket. Because it doesn't matter. You can't get close enough to that heater, right? It doesn't warm the whole area. It warms that little immediate area. And even with the furnaces, like we had our furnace in our camper kicking, but it would just not, it can't perform well enough. It never ever did. So we spent all winter
Bundled up
like we was an Eskimo.
Yeah, and the condensation and all the other things that happen while you're in a small space trying to be warm and it's cold outside can create other issues for you too.
Exactly.
We ended up with moisture in the camper. I found mold on the windows. That was concerning for me. And I made it a point to start cleaning more, but those are risks that we started putting ourselves in with that kind of situation
Yep.
that we didn't think about before.
It happened in the summer too. When we would run the air conditioners, it would condensate. And we found the mold and we cleaned it. But what about the places we didn't find?
Right.
You know, it's there. Those folks that are getting old beat up campers and turning them into something, they really are putting themselves at risk. You really are. So if you're that person, just know that there's like a lot that we didn't consider before, and we had to actually experience it, and it's pretty serious, right? It's a big disaster waiting to happen unless you know up front what you're actually getting into, right? So another big problem. Not a big problem. There's a flip side of this. You tell me what you think. The space. So our camper was 30 feet long and whatever wide it is, as wide as a camper. Not much more, definitely not 10 feet wide. So whatever a legal camper is, it's got to fit down a road, right? So it's probably like 8 or 9 feet wide. Some of these campers have whatever, the little step outs or whatever, the slide outs and stuff. So it does add just a little bit of room, but the fact of the matter is, when we lived in our 697 square foot house in Denver, it was too small for us. And when we moved into a camper, it became even more of a subject. That being said, it can really weigh on you. When there's no room or you don't have your own space to get away from things, to collect yourself, it can really weigh on you. Psychologically, you can start to feel confined.
Right.
Emotionally.
Yeah, some of our biggest challenges with living in this space, aside from the weather, I mean, we were kind of preparing ourselves throughout, our adventure, thinking about this. But when it comes down to being in a space together, know where to go, especially during those times where the weather's so brutal that you're pushed inside, it definitely puts a stress on things.
Yeah.
And when you're in a marriage, that's one thing, but you add children to it, I can't even imagine how stressful that could be.
Yeah, because you really do. You need your space.
Yeah. We had we had some adjusting to do when we lived like that. Because even our home was tiny, but
at least we had some separation. So yeah, at least we had some separation, and that's definitely something that you want to consider, because you're not going to be able to change that much under some circumstances. Now, during the day when it's nice, you can get out of the camper or out of your shed or out of your car or whatever it is, the tiny space that you're choosing to live in, you can escape it. But there's going to be times that you're not going to be able to escape it. And it doesn't matter whether you're ready up here or in here, you'll get stuck in there. It's when it's too hot. It's when it's too cold. It's when there's a threat outside.
This is the one thing that we really did not consider. The safety of a home versus when you're living in a camper and you're experiencing exterior stressful situations.
Yeah.
That one was challenging, you guys.
It was. And it plays into what I was trying to say, which is the space, because you don't necessarily feel very safe just because you're right next to the person, right? When you're right next to the person and the danger outside is a tornado. You don't feel safe just because you're together. Or if it's whatever, it could be a bear outside. It could be a crazy person outside. You never know where the threat or what the threat is. All you know is you could dang near touch both sides of your house almost, or link hands and do it, which is it starts to eat away at like that sense of security. And I know this to be true, even going from a 697 square foot house. At the end of the day, when we would come home, we could close our door and lock it, and we didn't fear as much as we do in a camper or in a tight, confined space. It could be the shed houses, even a tiny house. Just know that the tighter the space gets, the less we felt safe. And that space alone, just psychologically, will help you be able to process that stuff. And I'm not saying that don't do this, guys. I'm not trying to tell anybody not to do this. What we're trying to say is be prepared for this, because the fairy tale is amazing.
It certainly is.
We all expect to be able to live that, but mostly, guys, what we learned, it's a lie. Most of it is simply not true. It's not what we think it is, because they're not telling you the overall. Some people do. Some people share it, but I think that a lot of times it's embarrassing when you find out that you were kind of bamboozled, in a sense. Maybe not bamboozled. It's always your own responsibility to make sure whatever you're getting into, you've done your own research. You got diligence that is dependent on you. But sometimes we just believe because you can't experience it right away. So you rely on somebody else's experience. And mostly what we see is just simply not true. What I can tell you is pooping in a bucket is not a memory that I would want my child to grow up with. Now, I know people have to live that way, and I am not trying to put anybody down that has to live like this. I get it. Most of those people, though, they're trying to get out of it. Today, it seems like a lot of people are trying to get into it, right? And having a bathroom to go to is so insanely important. Our camper has a bathroom. Both campers have bathrooms. They're fully contained. But our house isn't. And we still today know the effects of having to leave from your safety to go across the driveway or go behind a tree or whatever it is you'll find yourself in. It takes away something. It becomes something different than having a little bit of sleepy eye, getting up, moseying to the bathroom. Now we're stumbling across. We might step on a copperhead. There could be a bobcat or a bear out there. Who knows what it is? Cold, raining, it doesn't matter. You still have to go through all those processes that you don't really think about until you don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm not trying to like put anybody down.
But those are things that are, you think about them because you're like, well, how am I going to do this? How are we going to take care of this? But when it comes down to it, I found myself, even during the winter, we froze over. And there were days that I went without a shower. And that really can take a mental toll on a person.
Certainly
and
can.
I've been in places in my life where that has happened before, but when it seems unending and
days, 4, 5, 6 days,
and it's that time of the month and all the terrible things it could be. Yep. You know, that was where I was at one time, and it really did take a bad toll on me. And we were so blessed that there was somebody that lifted us up during that time for a shower. I'll never forget it. But those are the things that still resonate with us. You know, yeah. I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
We still struggle with it. We're
probably going to have to do it this winter because we're still not in a house
with water.
So we still rely on our camper yeah. for all that stuff because it has a full bathroom.
Yeah.
But it's not the same.
It's not.
It's just not the same. Like being able to get up and go to a kitchen and open up a refrigerator and grab the gallon of milk and take you a swig, or cooking breakfast in the kitchen and sitting down at a dining table and sharing a meal with your family is not the same when you're in a confined space. Now, there is a flip side to it, guys.
Oh, those were tough times too.
Yeah, our holidays, they became so much different. Now, they're always going to be our memories, right? But they're not all super awesome for us. Now, it also did bring us together closer as a family, but we were already kind of living that way anyways. So our experience is just a little bit different. But it's probably not going to be much different from your experience. I'm not sure if you're considering this. Maybe you've already done it. Maybe you just want to know what it's like. So if I had to break it down, I would say that it's fine short term. Mm-hmm. But the safety and I'm just going to say what a home actually has to offer you is much different than any of these other lifestyles that you might be considering. And it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that you seriously need to be prepared, because it might save your pocketbook for a second, but at what price? You know, what are you willing to pay personally? What are you willing to give up to be able to live a lifestyle like this? Because there's a lot of cost that comes with it. It may not be the dollar, but unless you're prepared for it, the true cost could be everything.
That emotional cost us a lot more in time around here on the property, where we were, trying to compartmentalize all the things that we had to process instead of being able to focus on the things that we wanted to.
Exactly. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Now, when we came out here, we actually had anticipated being able to live in a mobile home that had some dilapidated add-ons to it, but we thought we were going to be able to dress it up enough, but it was just simply not possible. And mobile homes are designed. They're legit. If you set it up correctly, they're legit.
Yeah.
And I lived in one for many years. As a matter of fact, my family owned a mobile home park. So I know what that means. I was trailer park for years and years. And winters were always harder than in a home. And summers were always harder than in a home. And the storms definitely were always harder than in a home. Now, whether you're legitimately safer and all that, I don't really know. But it is different. It feels different. You think about it different. Everything is like, I don't even know how to explain it. You give up a lot is what I'll say. You give up a lot. And it's not all bad. There is such an awesome adventure involved in this. And even for the little ones, if it's done correctly, then you're not going to hurt those little ones, right? But it has to be done correctly, and you have to be a special kind of person too. And your kids got to be kind of special too, in a way, because I think personally, if I had to grow up that way, I would not want to be this way now, right? Because the price that comes with what we actually see happening with a lot of this is, it's not as nice as we all pretend, right? And kids will just go along because they ain't got a choice. And old people, we had a couple and their mom that lived up in the front of our road for a very short time. And they pulled a house in there, or whatever. It was still just a shed. They just dress them up now. It's a tough shed, man. You put your lawnmower in there. They moved that thing up in there, and they did some insulating and put a wood burning stove in there. We would stop and see them occasionally. We actually gave them a power unit. And when we would see them, guys, they were outside cooking on a fire because there's no kitchen. They were pooping in the yard or in a bucket, whatever they were doing. They had dirt smudge streaks all over them because the fireplace is dirty and it's pushing smoke. And Mom got a broken hip, no access to water, heat, electricity, cooling, kitchen, but nothing. That's not living. And when we were in our campers, for years, we were not living either. And that is the truth. Now, there's life in there, and it wasn't all bad. But the truth is, we were mostly surviving. And if I'd have known that, we would have made different choices before we came out and did what we did. Now, we can't turn back time, but if I could turn back time, I probably bought a house. I'm just saying. We'd already be homesteading because of it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But we building a house, guys. And it's a mansion compared to a tiny house. It's still not big. It's 30 by 40, 2 stories.
Still too big.
It's much too big now. Now that we in it. And we too poor to keep building. But that's besides the point. Don't think you're going to get out cheaper on a legit tiny house, because that gets you. Now, some states you can't even do what a lot of what we see on YouTube today is considered tiny house living. You couldn't do it. A lot of states. There's too many codes, and people are going to tell you that there's no codes out here. There is, guys. Here's the truth about that. It's called a universal code, and it's not a hindrance for you. And if you don't understand that, it's because you don't understand construction very well and the consequences or what could happen if you make a mistake. These codes are not there to be difficulty. They're there to protect people, especially when people don't actually know what you've done and covered up, right? Because you put other people at risk, or people that have no choice, like your little ones that you bring out, and then you think you're an electrician, all this other stuff that comes with it, and it just becomes so dangerous. Those codes are there for a reason. Out here, they'll tell you, we ain't got no codes. We don't want to change that. We ain't got no codes. Truth is, everybody does. What we don't have is code enforcement, which means you can get away with putting other people at risk. And I'm not trying to say those people are bad either. Any of them. We can all consider ourselves to be better at things than we really are. But if you're well informed, you're going to be able to enter something like this, and it will save you money, and you can make it. And it's amazing.
And one of the things, to go ahead and sum this up in the end, that was our final nail in the coffin, is the long picture.
Yeah.
If we are not happy where we are, can we sell? How much can we sell for?
Yeah.
Will the place that we have be worth it? And that's what we wanted in the end, is to make sure that what we have is safe for the next person and worth it for the next person.
Yep.
And we get a return from it if we are not happy here.
Exactly, because you save nothing if you can't get it back. You may as well just be paying somebody your rent.
Right.
You don't get that back either. So everything that you put into it, you hope to get back someday, or at least have value. So that's a very good point. So let me ask you guys before we wrap this one up. Could you live like this? First and foremost, do you think you could live tiny house lifestyle? And what do you think the biggest challenge would be for you? Our challenges may be different from yours, and we're interested in knowing, and it might help somebody else make that same decision. So we're going to end this one here, guys. We don't want to be downers. We want you to know that if you want to do it, you can. Just be prepared, because there's more to it than what you probably believe. And that's where we're at with it. So if you're enjoying this content, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Hit that notification bell to let you know we got something up. And we're really excited about sharing this stuff with you, because it's important and we love it. We love sharing it with you so much, and we want you to share it with people, right? Because it helps us continue to hang out with you. And subscribe right now if you're not already subscribed. We thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next one. And peace.
Kitchen table dreams scribbled in the sink. Bills piled high, but the faith ran deeper. She was the dreamer, he the